It always feels good when you are appreciated. SLT non-stop broadband. Free loyalty data added as you stay connected.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, UNHRC heats up. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights expresses disappointment in Sri Lanka's withdrawal.
I regret that the new government has announced a very different approach to the commitments previously made in the resolution.
And Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena refuses to back down.
Those who have expressed disappointment, it is clear that they are privileging a superficial facade which has failed to deliver.
Man with a plan. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa outlines his people-centric rural upliftment plans to UNICEF officials.
Our economic program is based on people-centric economic model.
Helping Hand. Sri Lanka evacuates 2 Sri Lankan Diamond Princess crew members by special charter flight with India's help. Big choice. Interim Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad calls on the House of Representatives to choose new Prime Minister before heading for elections. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Thursday, the 27th of February 2020.
SMS කර රුපියල් මිලියන 3ක මුල්තැන්ගේ උපකරණ දිනාගෙන අවුරුද්දෙම කුස්සිය time save කරගන්න.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Let's start with your local stories. Now, in response to the announcement to the United Nations Human Rights Council by Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena yesterday of Sri Lanka's decision to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of UNHRC Resolution 40/1, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet expressed regret towards the move, calling it a setback in efforts towards reconciliation, accountability and human rights. Bachelet expressed lack of confidence in the ability of Sri Lanka's domestic systems in delivering accountability, adding that she was not convinced that the appointment of another commission of inquiry will advance this agenda. In response, however, Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena stated that those expressing disappointment in Sri Lanka's domestic processes are privileging a superficial facade that has failed to deliver results in the past 4.5 years of a genuine possibility of reconciliation underpinned by a people's mandate. UN Human Rights Commissioner Michelle Bachelet delivered an oral update on Sri Lanka's human rights today at the 10th meeting of the 43rd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. In a statement, she expressed disappointment in the decision of Sri Lanka's government to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of UNHRC Resolution 40/1 announced at yesterday's sessions by Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
I regret that the new government has announced a very different approach to the commitments previously made in the resolution, which risks setting back efforts to advance reconciliation, accountability and human rights. The state must work for all its people and the needs of all communities, particularly the minorities, must be acknowledged and addressed. I urge the government to preserve and build upon the gains which have been made over the last few years. In particular, I encourage the government to ensure the Office on Missing Persons and the Office of Reparations are provided with political and resource support. The families of missing persons from all communities deserve justice and redress. Sri Lanka's independent institutions, strengthened under the 19th Constitutional Amendment, are a key pillar in its democratic structure, and the space for civil society and independent media should be protected. I am therefore troubled by the recent trend towards moving civilian functions under the Ministry of Defense or retired military officers, and renewed reports of surveillance and harassment of human rights defenders, journalists and victims. The increasing levels of hate speech and security and policy measures appear to be discriminatory and disproportionately directed against minority, both Tamil and Muslim. The fundamental problem remains that Sri Lanka has still not addressed impunity for past violations, nor undertaken the security sector reforms needed to address the drivers and enablers. Systemic barriers that continue to exist within the criminal justice system remain an impediment to real justice. Domestic processes have consistently failed to deliver accountability in the past, and I am not convinced the appointment of yet another commission of inquiry will advance this agenda. As a result, victims remain denied justice, and Sri Lankans from all communities have no guarantee that past patterns of human rights violation will not recur. I urge the Council to remain alert to this situation in terms of prevention and to explore all possible avenues for advancing accountability.
Responding to the statement, Minister of Foreign Relations Dinesh Gunawardena accused the UNHRC of privileging a superficial facade that has failed to deliver any quantitative results and hasn't considered the ground realities of Sri Lanka's domestic situation.
I wish to reiterate that Sri Lanka remains committed to engaging with the High Commissioner and her office in achieving sustainable development, peace and reconciliation within the national framework overwhelmingly approved by the people of Sri Lanka during the presidential election last November, where President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was elected with an overwhelming majority. Yesterday, the government of Sri Lanka at the high-level segment made it clear its position with regard to the HRC resolution 30/1, particularly its decision to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of the resolution 40/1 of March 2019. We emphasize that our commitment to achieving the goals set by the people of Sri Lanka on accountability, human rights, to a sustainable peace and reconciliation through the appointment of a domestic commission of inquiry, by implementing policies rooted in the government's commitment to operationalize the sustainable development goals, by continuing to work with the assistance of the UN and its agencies. To those who have expressed disappointment on Sri Lanka's decision to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of the resolution 30/1, despite the government's reassurance to this Council of our commitment to achieving the goals within the framework of our Constitution to ensure accountability and human rights towards sustainable peace and reconciliation, it is clear that they are privileging a superficial facade which has failed to deliver for 4.5 years over the genuine possibility of reconciliation underpinned by people's mandate. In keeping with our consistent policy of continued engagement with the Human Rights Council, Sri Lanka wishes to respond to the current report of the High Commissioner and engage in a constructive discussion with the August Assembly today, with the sincere hope that this Council would recognize their realities on the ground. We do so conscious of the fact that period of 1 year since the adoption of the resolution 40/1 and 4.5 years since the adoption of the initial resolution 30/1, our government has been in power for only a little over 100 days out of the said period. I wish to recall that during the 40th session of the Council, the government of Sri Lanka was represented by a delegation headed by my predecessor, who in Sri Lanka's statement explained at length the constitutional, legal and the socio-political challenges involved in full implementing the HRC resolution of 30/1. In this context, we consider that the High Commissioner's insistence on the current report on the full implementation of the demands made on Sri Lanka in Resolution 31 indicates that the OHCHR fails to recognize the rational, legitimate concerns voiced by the states that are seeking in good faith to address issues. As highlighted before the Council on several occasions, Sri Lanka has consistently refuted the credibility of the false and unsubstantiated allegations leveled against Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, the present commander of the Sri Lanka Army. Sri Lanka considers that the continued arbitrary accusations made against Lieutenant General Silva and unilateral actions by certain countries are unacceptable and a violation of the principles of natural justice. With regard to alleged intimidating visits, surveillance, complaints of harassment and reprisals referred to in the High Commissioner's report, the government has already publicly refuted these allegations. We wish to reiterate to the Council Sri Lanka's commitment expressed during the high-level segment to achieve sustainable peace through an inclusive domestic design and executed reconciliation and accountability process. The existing reconciliation mechanisms established by an Act of Parliament, such as the Office on the Missing Persons and the Office of Reparations, will be continued. With regard to the issues on missing persons, steps would be taken after necessary investigations to issue death certificates or certificates of absence, while also providing livelihood and assistance to the affected families. We hope the Council would appreciate this approach of focusing on deliverable measures of reconciliation that are in line with the interests of Sri Lanka and its people, instead of the practice of taking on a host of undeliverable commitments with the intention of never implementing them.
In the meantime, State Minister of Investment Promotions Kehelia Rambukwel, commenting on the UNHRC Resolution 40/1, called it a measure planned by the Tamil diaspora targeting the Rajapaksa administration for its defeat of terrorism in Sri Lanka. The State Minister reiterated the confidence of the current government in pledging accountability and human rights through a domestic process that safeguards the country's sovereignty. He added that there is no justice in collective punishment of the country's military personnel, such as was evident in the travel ban on the country's Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva by the United States.
It's not a question of minority. It is a question of an organized group working against the Rajapaksa administration during that time. You would have seen that even when the sessions were on, the first year, second year, there was all Tamil diaspora actively participating in it, actively making very derogative comments on it, and they also were able to secure slots to express comments or whatever the reasons that they used to give. They blow it completely out of proportion. That resolution says to slit our throat. So as far as we are concerned, nowhere in the world where you have had a brutality to the extent of LTT, that everything was done within 2-3 years. We just commenced it somewhere around 2012, if I remember, under the UNP regime. They wouldn't have taken action against the terrorists. They wanted to always, they believed that this could have been settled by way of negotiation, which was a complete myth. We tried our best to do that. We gave them 2 opportunities, in 2005 latter part and 2006 early, for any kind of discussion. But we found that discussions or negotiations were used to strengthen themselves whenever they are weak. Finally, we decided that this can be completely done away by means of a military operation, which we did. And very unfortunately, at Geneva, they are discussing the last 2 weeks of the war, when we had atrocities right across for 30 years, right? So basically there was no ethnicity. It was just a massacre and terrorism. So terrorist has to be dealt with equal force, which we did. So we will have indigenous mechanism where we feel that we are quite able and capable of finding the truth and finding with regard to the accountability and so on and so forth. Basically what we have agreed and what we have announced to the international community, that we will have a homegrown system if their preamble is accountability of human rights. And if that is what they want, we will ensure that we will have certain committees or the commission within our system safeguarding our sovereignty. And also, we need to also safeguard the people who fought the war. There may have been 1 or 2 cases, but that has to be dealt separate. But you cannot put on a blanket cover and say another army generals and hierarchy have been barred from traveling. Now, is there any justice?
Now, moving on with other local stories, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yet again pledged his government's commitment to eradicate poverty and uplift quality of life of the people as he hosted a discussion with representatives of the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund at the Presidential Secretariat. He went on to illustrate how his people-centric economic model will achieve the desired results. The head of state also went on to say that the government is looking forward to developing a digital platform for farmers, enabling them to sell their produce directly to consumers, thus eliminating the middlemen. Outlining a vision to end child malnutrition in Sri Lanka, a portfolio consisting of an abridged version of the State of the World's Children report on why it is imperative to address child malnutrition in Sri Lanka, developed by the UN, the World Bank and UNICEF, was presented to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat.
Our economic program is based on people-centric economic model. Especially, we want to raise the level of the lowest, poorest of the poor to the higher level in our development. That means that will help actually the children and women especially. In this, we have several projects actually. One is giving a government job for poorest families. Now, in fact, we have started that interviewing, and we want to select 100,000 families and give a government employment for one member, so that the income of that family will be raised. So that will help the whole family, especially when the income of the family grows. That will benefit the children and also the women. Then also in my manifesto, we promised to give food package for every month to the poor low-income families. It's very important because big percentage are rural and they are farmers mostly. We have to increase their income level. For that, we have to assist bringing technology into the farming, the drip irrigation, greenhouses, use of proper fertilizer, use of high-quality seeds. These things has to go. Then also the assistance in them in storage and transportation, and also to remove the intermediaries, so that the real income will go to the farmer families. This is a huge problem. We are discussing in creating a digital platform for them to sell their produce, as well as for them gradually learn about the new techniques of agriculture. Just before, we had a long discussion about the fisheries sector, how we can improve the fisheries sector. Fish is a good nutrient, but it's not affordable for the poor families. So we have, in this, actually, we were having the discussion how to give a good market while improving the industry and giving a good income for the fishermen. Again, you have to think of the consumer, giving an affordable price of fish for the consumer. I'm very keen on developing the dairy. So this is an area where we can get assistance from developed countries to develop the dairy farming here. As a government, we are concentrating on eradicating of poverty and to lift the standards of living of these low-income people in many ways.
Now, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa insisted today that the government will not let the bond scam slide and vowed to keep pressure on the matter, which he said is now with the Attorney General. Addressing an event, the PM noted that the government is closely monitoring its progress. The Ganemulla Vocational Training Centre was declared open today by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Former President Maithripala Sirisena also participated in the event.
මම ආවේ මේ ගොඩනැගිල්ල විවෘත කරන්න ගරු මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ අගමැතිතුමත් එක්ක මැතිවරණය අපි ඔක්කොම එකට එකතු වෙලා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පොදු ජන සන්ධානය හැදුවා. ඒ තුල අපි මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරය කරනවා. අපිට විශිෂ්ට ජයග්‍රහණයක් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිගේ නායකත්වයේ තුල අපි මේ මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරය කරනවා. අද වෙනකොට සර් පැදුම්කරේට අවුරුදු 5ක් වෙනවා. අපි දැන් නීතිපතිවරයාට දීලා තියෙනවානේ. ඉතින් නීතිපතිවරයා ඒක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න ඕනේ. දැන් නීතිපතිවරයා මම හිතන්නේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙයි. අපි ඉන්නවා පිටිපස්සෙන්. ඒක නිදහසේ යන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඊයේ වෙච්ච සිද්ධිය පිළිබඳව අපි කනගාටු වෙනවා. ක්‍රිකට් මැච් එක බලන්න ගිහිල්ලා. ක්‍රිකට් බෝඩ් එක කරපු අවුල තමයි මට පේන්නේ. මේ ගැටුමට හේතු උනේ. මොකද අවුරුදු ගානකට පස්සේ තරුණ ළමයි මේ මැච් එක බලන්න ආවම මේ විදිහට සලකපු එක නම් සම්පූර්ණ වැරදි.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also took part in the opening ceremony of a 3-story laboratory complex at the Kalani Institute of Engineering Technology.
හම්බන්තොට වගේ අලුතෙන් ගොඩනැගෙන නව කර්මාන්තපුරයන් එක්ක ඇති වෙන විශාල ඉල්ලුම සඳහා විශේෂ උපාධිධාරීන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවය රටට පැහැදිලිව පේනවා. එවැනි අවස්ථාවකදී මම හිතනවා ඔබේ ඩිප්ලෝමාව උපාධියක් දක්වා උසස් කරලා ඒ උපාධිය ලබාගත් තරුණ පිරිසක් අනාගතයට බිහි කරන්න අපිට හැකි වෙයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා.
In the meantime, the 31st National Youth Sports Festival also got underway today with the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Anuradhapura Public Grounds.
ක්‍රීඩා උත්සව තුලින් තමයි ජාත්‍යන්තර මට්ටමට රට තුල ඉන්න ක්‍රීඩකයන් හඳුනා ගන්නට පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඔබ අද දක්වන උනන්දුව ඔබ හෙට දැක්විය යුතු අතර අනාගතයේ උදෙසා ජාත්‍යන්තර මට්ටමේ ක්‍රීඩකයන් බිහි කරන්න අපිට ශක්තිය තියෙන විදිය අපි කවුරුත් දන්නවා.
Now, UMP parliamentarian Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca says that party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe is planning to enter parliament through the national list and will not be contesting the election. He made these comments addressing an event in Ragame yesterday.
Parliamentarians of the United National Party commented on the current status of the alliance, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
Samagi Jana Balawegaya. දී රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා මැතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්නේ.
ආරංචි අනුව නම් එතුමා මැතිවරණයට ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් එතුමා ලයිස්තුවෙන් එන්න අවශ්‍යයි කියලා තියෙනවා. එවැනි වාතාවරණයක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
පාක්ෂික නායකයෙක් ඇයි එහෙම මේ ජාතික ලයිස්තුවෙන් එන්න අදහසක් කරලා තියෙන්නේ?
දෙයියෝ තමයි දන්නේ. එක්සත් ජාතික පාක්ෂිකයෝ ඔක්කොම ඉන්නේ සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ. නාම යෝජනා දෙන්නේ සමගි ජන බලවේගයෙන්. එතකොට එතුමාත් ඉල්ලනවා නම් ඉතින් සමගි ජන බලවේගයෙන් තමයි. නැතුව තනියම ඉල්ලීමේ අයිතියක් තියෙනවා. එතුමාට කැමති නම් තනියම ඉල්ලන්නත් හැකියාව තියෙනවා.
පුළුල් සන්ධානයකින් තමයි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයට තරඟවදින්නේ. ඉතින් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයත් ඒ සන්ධානයේ ප්‍රධාන පාර්ශවකරුවෙක්. සලකුණ අලියා හෝ හංසයා කියන එක තමයි තීරණය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
කොටාපේ රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්වා ඡන්ද දින්නම රුපියල් 1000ක් දෙනවා කියලා උතුකර ජනතාවට. දැන් මාර්තු මාසේ පළවෙනි දා දෙනවා කියලා කියනවා. එතකොට මාර්තු මාස වඩිය ලැබෙන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඒප්‍රල් මාසේ 10 වෙනිදා. ඉතින් මාර්තු මාසේ පළවෙනි දා දෙන්නම් කියලා වරලා ඒප්‍රල් මාසේ 10 වෙනිදා දෙනකොට ඡන්ද කොමසාරිස්තුමා කියයි ඒ වෙලේ කරන්න බෑ කියලා. 100,000ක් වෙන්න ඕන. එච්චරයි.
We will see you shortly. Bear with us. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, amidst global COVID-19 outbreak, Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced today that Sri Lankan crew members aboard the quarantined cruise ship Diamond Princess in Japan were evacuated to a quarantine facility in India, and both of them are in good condition. In the meantime, the entire world is now paying attention to how the virus has gathered momentum outside mainland China, with some experts saying that the world is underprepared to handle what the World Health Organization insists to be a pandemic. The Ministry of Foreign Relations confirmed today that the 2 Sri Lankan crew members on board the quarantined cruise ship in Japan, Diamond Princess, were evacuated last night by a charter flight organised by the Indian government to New Delhi upon a request made by the Sri Lankan government. Furthermore, according to the Sri Lankan embassy in Japan, the 2 Sri Lankan crew members are in good health. The total of 124 crew who were on board the cruise ship have been evacuated and will undergo a quarantine period in the army facility in Haryana of India, and the Sri Lankan crew members will return to Colombo after completion of the quarantine procedure. As at 7:20 p.m. Sri Lankan time today, the global death toll from the novel coronavirus, which has affected nearly 50 countries, had climbed to 2,814, with 82,585 cases of infections also reported. The death toll from COVID-19 in Japan has increased up to 4, with 207 cases of infections. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe yesterday called for sports and cultural events to be scrapped or curtailed for 2 weeks, as the country battles to stem coronavirus contagion amid mounting concerns that the 2020 Tokyo Olympics could be cancelled. South Korea, meanwhile, confirmed 13 deaths of COVID-19 and 1,766 infections. Although the country's COVID-19 cases have been on the rise, no Sri Lankans are confirmed to have been tested positive for the virus. The novel coronavirus death toll in Italy, meanwhile, which is the COVID-19 epicenter in Europe, has increased up to 14, with the total number of infections in the country also shooting up to 528. Iran confirmed 26 deaths, the highest death toll outside mainland China, with 245 infections. In the United States, a state of emergency is declared in the city of San Francisco and Orange County amid COVID-19 fears. Brazil, Georgia, Denmark and Norway also confirmed their first novel coronavirus infections yesterday. Now, in other local news, former UPFA MP Sajjan Divas Gunawardena has been remanded until the 20th of March by the Colombo High Court for allegedly intimidating witnesses in a court case. The former parliamentarian has been indicted on the charge of money laundering amounting to over 300 million rupees. When the case was taken up today before High Court Judge Gihan Kulatunga, the State Counsel, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General, informed court that a complaint has been received that the defendant had engaged in the intimidation of witnesses. The State Counsel requested that the defendant be placed in remand custody, as he could affect the hearing of evidence while out on bail. Subsequently, High Court Judge Gihan Kulatunga approved the request and ordered to remand Sajjan Divas Gunawardena until the 12th of March. Now taking a look at the markets, Sri Lankan stocks ended 0.43% stronger today, reversing the decline seen in the past 4 consecutive days. The all-share price index closed at 5,667.87, while the S&P index ended at 2,675.41 points. A market turnover of 486 million rupees was generated during the day's market activity. Now here's a brief report on today's market performance.
The secondary bond market yield curve experienced a downward shift in line with the improvement witnessed in the market liquidity, while overall market recording a moderate volume during the day. And stock market ended in a positive territory, reversing the negative trend witnessed for the last 4 consecutive sessions and primarily on the price gain made in Nestle and Sri Lanka Telecom. Turnover was boosted by the trade made in TJL, Sunshine Holding and Sanasa Bank, contributing nearly 41% of the turnover amidst low foreign participation.
Now taking a look at the currency, the Sri Lankan rupee ended weaker at 181 rupees and 85 to 90 cents to the US dollar in the spot market today, while bond yields eased. However, the rupee ended at 181 rupees and 65 to 70 cents to the greenback yesterday. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. We'll see you again after this very short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, Malaysia's interim Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad says that Malaysia's House of Commons, or House of Representatives I should say, should vote to select a new Prime Minister. His comments come in the backdrop of his resignation as the Prime Minister. However, he still remains as the interim PM until a new PM is appointed.
Malaysian interim PM Mahathir Mohamad said that the Malaysian House of Representatives will vote on a new candidate for Prime Minister on Monday.
And because he doesn't get a distinct majority, he says that the right forum would be the Parliament, Dewan Rakyat. So Dewan Rakyat will be called on the 2nd of next month in order to determine who gets the majority support in the Dewan Rakyat to become the next Prime Minister. However, if the Dewan Rakyat fails to find a person with the majority, then we will have to go for a snap election.
Malaysia was plunged into political turmoil this week by the unexpected resignation of Mahathir, who at 94 is the world's oldest government leader.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.